It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice right here, right now. Glad to have you on board. For those of you that are catching us live on our website, always glad to see you out there. Sioux Falls, let's see, Lincoln, Magnolia, not quite sure where that is either, Huntington. Some of these cities I don't know. See folks out there out of Spokane, California. See Florida out there. I see the East Coast. Looks like there's a whole bunch of dots over there. They're so confused I can't see which cities they're from. Well, thank you very much for joining with us. Appreciate your visiting with us this morning. And we're going to cover 4 different topics as our normal standard is. And the purpose behind what we try to do here is to educate and enlighten you as to what's happening in our nation, what is transpiring on a daily basis, so that you have the opportunity to utilize critical thinking to understand where you're being played, frankly. The Ministry of Propaganda, that would be the mainstream media, the 6 major corporations that own all the media that you hear, see, read, smell, taste. They're determined that you are going to succumb to their idea of a world shaped and molded in their particular slant. I and many others in the alternative media are determined to give you the truth. And so we try to take a look at these stories that are out there on a daily basis and kind of bring you up to speed on not so much what they're telling you, because you can read that for yourself. What we try to do is to show you the side that they're not telling you, because quite honestly, that's generally more important than what they are telling you. So anyway, our topics this morning are going to be Dirty Harry on the King's decrees for Obamacare. You know, Dirty Harry kills me. This guy is the most corrupt, archaic piece of trash in the Senate. There is not a human being on the planet that has a deeper level of hooks in corruption and a greater level of willingness to betray his own nation than Dirty Harry Reid. I got to tell you, this guy just kills me. The second topic is Media Shield law that is being proposed by Chuck Hit-the-Fan Schumer. This is nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to license journalists. Now, some of you may say, well, what is the difference whether they license journalists? Because a license means that you are given permission now to act in a certain way. And when you transgress the boundaries of that way, you stray from the path of what the license allows you to do, you can be removed from the boat, kicked off the island, as it were. Here's the problem. Your free speech is not a license. Your free speech is given to you by a power far greater than ourselves. You can call it a creator, you can call it the universe, you can call it karma, you can call it whatever you like. But our founders didn't give it to us, and the Constitution doesn't give it to us. All they do is delineate it in writing. They gave it to us in an outline. But recognize that it's only an outline. There is no reason for government to determine who has free speech and who doesn't. On its face, just that statement alone is proof of their treason. That's it. Our third topic, real inflation, real unemployment. Ladies and gentlemen, These numbers, if you know what the real numbers are, not the sham numbers the government gives you that they can manipulate with charts and statistics and Excel spreadsheets, the real numbers, they are staggering. We are in a deflationary period now that is comparable to what we went through in the Great Depression. Inflation is well over 10%. Truth. And unemployment is realistically at least 14, if not as high as 20%. I'm going to show you some charts. Well, I'm not going to show you some charts. I'm going to talk to you about some charts, and I'll give you links in the bodies. They're up on our Facebook and YouTube pages and all that stuff. All right. Our fourth and final topic is raw truth. Can you handle the raw truth and the fix for America? I'll be honest with you. Most people can't. And I know that for a fact. You know how I know that? Because we haven't. It's real simple. No one can deny at this point that we're in trouble. No one. And yet we continue to bet good money after bad on the same exact things that got us here in the first place. That tells me that people aren't willing to change their ways and or give up what is to them their particular flight of fancy, whatever they get out of it. In some cases that's, security. Some cases that's food and sustenance. Some cases it's housing. Some cases it's just free crap. Some cases it's a promise of a seat at the table. This is the table of tyranny that rises like a phoenix from the ashes of liberty. So the truth is, it's time for America to come to a decision-making process here and have a come-to-Jesus meeting with our mirrors. When I say that, I mean that it's time for us to be introspective and realistic about what our chances are and what we need to do to try to put some semblance of control back into the hands of people and take it away from the small oligarchy of tyrants. I mean, we're talking a few thousand people, folks. The problem is I don't think a lot of folks are willing to do what it's going to take. Yesterday, I outlined a group of solutions that you can take as a partisan. And that's a term that you should become extraordinarily familiar and comfortable with. You are a partisan. What exactly does that mean? Well, we're going to explore it in the fourth segment. But it's an important one, so I strongly encourage you to listen up and begin to think outside of the parallel that you've been given, the parallel lines. Stop coloring in the lines and let your mind get creative. Let's talk about our first topic, Harry Reid. Harry slays me, literally and figuratively, actually. He comes out and says that the reason Obamacare is not taking off is because people aren't educated on how to use the internet. Now, just yesterday, I posted up on our Facebook page a picture of about 20 kids walking down the street, and all of them were head bent over looking at their phone screen. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? I mean, that's all this generation does. And let's be candid, those are the people they want. They don't want fogies like me. They want 20-somethings, 30-somethings who are healthy and are willing to pay for the people my age and older. So who is he trying to kid? The people that he's talking about here, the youth in our country, they know more about the internet. They've forgotten more about the internet than Harry Reid knows. Harry Reid, the dust cloud of the Senate. So I've come up with a new statement for Harry, and somebody should make a meme out of this. Hear ye, by decree of the king, all spoons are forthwith banned, and no person shall be fat. Further, by order of the king, our King Barack Obama, all pencils are hereby banned, and no spelling errors shall be made forthwith sooth. Signed, Dirty Harry, Sheriff of Nothingham. Dirty Harry just kills me. because there is no one in the public visage, except perhaps Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein. But he says that it's not that the internet service or system doesn't work and the internet website for healthcare.gov don't work. That's not the problem. But people aren't educated on how to use the internet. Now, perhaps that's just a thinly veiled ploy for more money to educate the masses, that he can skim some piece off the top for his home state of Nevada and the gambling companies that live there, which is very typical of Harry, by the way. Go look at his history. You know, the gambling companies in Las Vegas get almost as much money from the government as they do from you. It's amazing, right? They're actually dipping on both ends. And then they pay no taxes. So, hey, you know, it's what could possibly go wrong? But when he's talking here about his reasoning, which I use that term very lightly and with a lot of sarcasm, he says that many people just don't know how to use their computers properly, and they need more time. Well, the truth is, the only guy who's got a higher negativity rating on the planet right at the present moment than Barack Obama would be maybe Harry Reid. And anything that Harry says, you can bet, is couched as and you have to understand exactly from whence it comes. Everything that Harry does is designed around one focal point, and that is the push towards the party, the idea of making sure that the party survives at all costs. And these guys have a scorched earth mentality about them. In other words, they're like the guy who's losing the war, and he's now defending his last home city. And he says, if I can't have it, it doesn't matter if I injure my own country. I'm going to destroy this city so they can't have it. Or like the guy who beats his wife because he hates her guts. And he says, but if I can't have her, nobody else can either. Hello. I mean, it's just inconceivable to me. He would rather see this nation destroyed than to see it operate the way our founders intended. He would rather see millions of Americans die than for his precious party to lose favor and power. Couldn't care less. He is the epitome of an oligarch, a corrupt and tyrant of evil. He's got a brief segment here where he talks, and you can just hear in his voice the disdain he feels for those of us, of course, who are the subject of his disgust.
We've had a number of these delays, and I know you said that this is giving more people the opportunity to sign up and so on. But when they do have these hiccups or have these delays, doesn't that...
He's got a poster up here. He's standing at a news conference, and somebody's asking him a question. And he's got a poster up here that says, "A fair shot for everyone." I mean, if Harry told me that it was daylight outside, I would have to actually go to the window and pull the curtain back to verify.
Or delay. We have...
Here he comes with his sing-song voice. Oh, come on, for crying out loud.
Hiccup or delay. We have hundreds of thousands of people who tried to sign up and they didn't get through. There was a wonderful piece on public radio a couple of days ago. Connecticut. They're doing extremely well with healthcare, and what they've done is set up a couple of stores that people can come in and get their healthcare. It's worked out very well. And listening to that piece reminds me of why we had to extend this time. There are some people who are not like my grandchildren, who can handle everything so easily on the internet. And these people need a little extra time. It's not, the example they gave is a 63-year-old woman came in to the store and she said, I almost got it. Every time I just about got there, it would cut me off. We have a lot of people just like this, through no fault of the internet, because people are not educated how to use the internet. So this is not anything.
He's surrounded by Chuck Schumer, who hovers over him like a bat from hell, right? Hangs on the shoulder of Satan himself. And Dick Durbin stands over there with this grim look on his face. And I don't know who the sea hag is on the left, but she's got a plastic face that looks like she's had about 80 surgeries on it. She's got coiffed hair that looks like it wouldn't move if she were caught in the middle of the world's largest tornado. And she's got so much lipstick on, she could paint the wall behind her. These people are actually caricatures of humanity. They're a joke. They're so shallow and so hollow. Their interest is merely in pursuing their own beneficial situation. They seek power for power's sake, money for money's sake, and you can be damned. They couldn't care less about you. They consider their job to rule you. Americans across the board have succumbed to the propaganda that puts us in a position where we have allowed this filth to tell us what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, and that we're going to like it even when we don't. I am incensed by a person like Harry Reid because he epitomizes everything that humanity has a bad name for. All right, I gotta bring something out for you guys. I had a friend of mine who came up with a shirt, and I often don't, AVN. We don't sell anything. We don't sell books. We don't sell, miracle pills to diet with. We don't, we live purely on donations from our listenerships. But this guy gave me this shirt, or a group of them actually, and on them they have a blinking and a controller, an electronic controller, and a sign that says U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate. And he knows my thinking on this, and he had these made up for me, and it says, fire them all. And I don't know if you can see it because of the camera issue, but each one lights up. In fact, you can probably hear the thing humming. The upshot is, he had our logo put on these, and I'll make them available to. There's only a limited number of them. I think there were only 15 or 20 of them total, and I'll make them available to our listenership if you're interested. I'll talk about it a couple times during the course of today or tomorrow or until they're gone. There are a couple that are silk screened. There are one or two that were embroidered. And, they're not, but it's the kind of thing you can wear at a protest, and it's actually pretty cool because it lights up sequentially each line, right? And again, the line says, U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate, fire them all. And it's perfectly in time for the 2014 election. So if you're interested, I'll ship it to you, and I'll include shipping and everything. The truth is that they cost a little bit of money from him, and we'll do them for, let's say, $30. How's that? I know that's probably more than they're worth, but it'll give you an opportunity to get something for your money. And if you want that, send me an email to Mike. Now, by the way, they're only in like an XL size. That's the only size there are. I do have some other ones that I've had. When I went over there to pick them up, I went to the printer and asked him to silkscreen some other stuff that's out there. There's some ladies' blue jean vests that are coming. There's some sweatshirts, some regular blue, like pullover polos, knit polos, and there's some different sizes. So I'll make some available to you guys. They're just silkscreened. They're nothing, ultra fancy. If you're interested, just give me an email at mike@americasvoicenow.org. What we'll need to do is you can just go and make a PayPal payment through our website, and then we'll ship them straight over to you. Of course, you need your address for shipping. So, anyway, here's the deal, guys. Part of what we're going to talk about as we go forward today, and the theme of this, is what do I do to solve the problems in our country? Because the truth is, without solutions, all we're doing is complaining. And the raw truth of this thing is that in order for us to fix America, we have to begin to act, and act as partisans. Now, I'm not advocating anything illegal, and I'm going to preface this statement. We've only got 2 minutes left. I'm going to preface this statement for the purposes of the NSA and the FBI and everybody else who's listening and waiting for me to make a mistake and slip up so that they can yank me off the air. I'm not advocating anything illegal. I'm not advocating that you do and commit violence or anything along those lines. What I am advocating that you do is within civil, peaceful, disobedient means that you do anything and everything in your power to throw sand in the gears, to drag this thing to a screeching halt by actively working anywhere and everywhere that you can. Every chance you have, whatever your job is, whether you are a work-at-home mom, whether you are retired, every one of us has an opportunity to do something to gum up the works. I don't care if it's just sitting down and getting these people on the phone and making them explain themselves hour after hour after hour. I don't care if it's going to a school board meeting and raising Cain. I don't care if it's going to a city council meeting and exposing it for what it is. Start videotaping them and expose them for what they are when they do things just locally. This doesn't have to be on a national level, guys. What I want you to start doing is thinking outside the box and figuring out how can I, as a peaceful citizen partisan, begin to make a difference. I want to be a Lilliputian who gets my little tiny pin into the clothing of Gulliver. And I'm going to drag him, along with millions of my compatriots, to a screeching halt. That, folks, is something we can do. And we can do it with the knowledge that we are, create massive amounts of paperwork for them. Make them create massive paperwork for you. File Freedom of Information Acts. File floods of them. They cost you nothing. They don't cost anything for a Freedom of Information Act to file. Pick a topic, pick a subject, pick an agency you can't stand, state or federal. File Freedom of Information Acts under sunshine laws to get information from them. Make them compile the information and give it to you. We'll cover a lot of other ways as we move forward during the course of today. But I want you to start thinking and writing down ways. Don't just think about them. Write them down. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. You can email me directly at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. Email me directly and give me your ideas. Do it hypothetically. But I'd like to hear your ideas. Keep them legal, keep them clean, and let's make sure that we're sharing this information. I'll put together a list of your ideas and we'll post them. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Someday, maybe today, I'll hunt down the original of that song. It runs about 5 minutes. It was written for me by this cool kid in Romania. But the total song is about 5 minutes, and it's awesome because it interleaves back on itself, and it reminds me of a writhing snake, constantly moving and shifting. And anyway, that's how I see it. You may not see it that way. That's the beauty of music. We each interpret it our own way, right? never ceases to amaze me. I can listen to a beautiful opera piece or a piece sung by someone, and it can bring tears to my eyes. And I can look at the guy or the girl sitting next to me, and they're stoic as a stone. Doesn't move them at all. That's like, wow. I can listen to a beautiful piece of music. You know, I grew up in a very musical family. I'm the black sheep. I don't play anything. But my family are all very, very highly talented musicians. And I remember going to, various recitals and things that all, grew up on classical and classical music. And I can remember going to these recitals, and I'd be sitting there. And, of course, if you weren't allowed to breathe loudly when I was a kid, not like these kids today. They sit there and they're playing with their phone and they're making noise and snorting and coughing and, farting and every other darn thing out in public, and they're talking amongst themselves, talking on a cell phone during the middle of a performance. I feel like reaching over and smacking them in the back of the head. When I was a kid, man, when you sat in a recital or a performance, you kept your mouth shut. You asked permission to hiccup. Anyway. All right, so let's get on to our second topic. This morning, it is the issue of the media shield law that Chuck Schumer has been out pushing. Now, I've talked about this to you before, and I'm very, very deeply concerned about it. Because what it is a very, very thinly veiled effort to license and permit individuals to be journalists. Now, the problem with that, of course, is that the real goal here is to take the alternative media that's not able to be herded like the big six that own everything, and to take that group of non-compliant journalistic insurgents, right, and herd them in a way that you can control cats. So they want to license and permit you. And here's what you need to recognize. Anytime you look at licenses and permits, first of all, once what they give you, they can take away, right? And so once government is in the business of licensing those few people who have free speech, we may as well have Joseph Goebbels running the media. We're already not far from that, so don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say here. I'm here to tell you that it's almost impossible, unless you're listening or reading alternative media solutions, to find truth in today's media. That is the truth, folks. There is almost no way that you can know what's going on in the country unless you are already listening or watching or reading alternative media. If you are not, I cannot strongly encourage you enough to begin to do so. Stop watching Fox News. I'm telling you right now, Fox News is nothing but controlled opposition. There's a lot of people that are going to not like when I say that, but it is true. You can disagree with me. You're entitled to your opinion. I'll fight to the death to let you have it. But it doesn't change the fact that Fox News is owned by News Corp, which also owns the Wall Street Journal. I mean, look, I'm not saying that they don't, break news stories and things like that. They do. They have to in order to be in business. But they're not really coming out and telling us the truth. The number 2 Republican in the Senate came out yesterday and said, here's the truth. Chuck Schumer's shield law is a bad idea and one whose time has not come. The simple truth is, he's recognizing this for what it is. It is a thinly veiled attempt to stop alternative media. Now, is Cornyn from Texas, he's Senator John Cornyn from Texas, is he trying to, set the stage for his party? Of course. A lot of this is self-serving. No mistake about it. But there are times when you use the enemy's mistake, and I do classify them as the enemy, and you should too, when you use their mistake or their words against them. And in this case, he's made it very clear. He told Breitbart in an interview that was exclusive to them, he says, "Believe me, we will not be rolled over. Now, to be honest with you, that's probably the best news I've heard today. Because what that says to me is he's determined not to let this thing happen. And Schumer's been coming out saying, we've got all the votes we need. We have the 60 votes we need. We're good to go. And frankly, I'll tell you, if they pass this media shield law with the propaganda rules they changed about 5 or 6 months ago that I told you about and I exposed and no one else in the media has even talked about, we're done, folks. Because those people who are asleep at the switch will never be able to wake up. If somebody's silencing the alarm clock by putting their hand over the bell, that ticker thing, how is the person ever supposed to hear the alarm? And that's exactly what this media shield law will do. Chuck Schumer's, quote, Free Flow of Information Act. The Free Flow of Information Act. You're kidding me. He actually has the unmitigated gall to call it the Free Flow of Information Act. If you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. Every bill that comes out, you can tell whether you should or shouldn't vote for it just by its name. If it sounds like this rosy thing that's good, vote no. Chuck Schumer's Free Flow of Information Act passed the Senate Judiciary Committee in September. And now he says he's got the 60 votes needed to pass it, right? We need a few more Republicans, he says. Not many more, but we have the 60 votes. Well, right off the bat, that tells me that that's not true. We'll get a few more Republicans, he says, but not many more. But we have the 60 votes. All right. First of all, if he had the 60 votes, he wouldn't need any more Republicans, number one. Number two, Cornine comes out and makes the real point. If he had the votes to pass it, it would already have been passed. Duh. Exactly. Cornine throws that out and says, this isn't about passing legislation. This is about distracting the public's attention and changing the subject from the failed policies of this administration. I think you could put that in this and that same category. So, what you need to understand is this. I don't know whether they have the votes to pass this or not. I can tell you that if they do, then every American in the nation should do what? File to be a journalist. Every American. Anyone between the ages of 18 and 80 should submit an application to be a journalist. There you go. What's the goal of today? How can I be what's today's theme? How can I be a partisan and muck up the works? That's the game. And that's your new job. That's your new job description. You don't have any other job description going forward as a patriot and as an American citizen who truthfully wants this country to be preserved in some semblance of what our founders had created for us. And I'm not talking about saving and conserving what we have. That's what the conservatives want. I'm talking about going backward. I want to move back in time. I want to move back in time to a point where our Constitution was the guidebook, where everyone followed it. Now, has that been any time in our recent modern history? Heck no. We haven't had a constitutional government in well over 100 years. In fact, go back to where the 13th Amendment was the original 13th Amendment, not the bogus one that they made, which was the 14th Amendment, renamed the 13th. Go back to the 13th Amendment, the original one. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I want you to do, here's your homework assignment for today. Go look up the original 13th Amendment, and there are some places where you can find some information about it. And I should have been prepared for this, and I wasn't. The original 13th Amendment. I want you to go find it, and you can just type it in, the original 13th Amendment. The one that says that anyone who takes the name of a foreign, foreign government and utilizes that for their own, as a title, they lose their citizenship as an American citizen. Did you know that? It passed. It was an amendment until, I think, around 1865. Tom Lacavara, who comes on after me, will on Patriot FB, he's got a whole discussion on this. And I'll have him on the program one day, not next week, because next week I'm taking a vacation, but the week after that. Do your own homework, though. This 13th Amendment, the original 13th Amendment, was in the record books well into the 1860s, until 1870. Then it was removed and secretly removed. Here's the point. Here is the point. We haven't had a constitutional government in this country since before the Civil War. That's the truth. So frankly, the republic that we thought we had probably didn't last 75 years. Think about that for a minute. We've been operating under this de facto shadow government for so long, most of us don't even realize that we're living in the shadow. And we are no longer beneficiaries of the sunlight of the original Constitution. So when we talk about these people wanting to limit your access to information by licensing journalists who will be a, quote, covered journalist, that's insane. Now, they're saying, well, this is only for the purposes of being able to subpoena them and other legal requirements to expose confidential sources in leak investigations. Stop right there, because the next three words tell you everything you need to know. And other areas. Other areas. What are the other areas? It's called mission creep. Once this law is passed, it's the rule of incrementalism. Just like Obamacare, it's not intended to be Obamacare. It's not intended to be a voluntary thing. Shortly, it will be universal health care. You'll see. If you don't believe me, you just watch. If we don't implode economically before, or explode economically before then, shortly we will see Obamacare merged into universal health care. Government-sponsored, single payer. That was the goal all along, folks. Everything else you've been told is a stunning, staggering lie. Now, this goal is to get licensed or journalists licensed. And once they're licensed and permitted, anyone who's not will have no First Amendment rights. They've already said that it won't cover things like bloggers. It says, in fact, Cornyn says Schumer's proposal is flawed and may be an unworkable idea. Here's what Cornyn says. They want to pick and choose which journalists are covered. In other words, if you're a blogger, they may not cover you. But if you work for the New York Times, they might. Given the changes in the way we get information and the way we consume news, that really smacks to me in essence of government licensing who's an official journalist for the purposes of a shield law and who's not. If there is one thing I can glean from the First Amendment, it is that government should not be in the business of licensing the news media. See, you cannot have a free press if you're licensed by the government, because you're no longer free. They've now got their hooks and the ring into your nose. And like a bull, you can be led around easily. He goes on to say, it's totally inconsistent with the notion of a free press and the First Amendment. For example, if you've witnessed a crime taking place, you or I would both have to respond to a grand jury subpoena and come to testify what we've seen. This idea of saying you could have information about a crime and you are immunized from having to partake in a basic act of American citizenship strikes me as pretty odd, to say the least. Here's the problem. At this stage in the game, the real goal here is to censor those people that are not in line and are not malleable because they've got something to lose. When I say that, I mean it this way. The people who are, for all intents and purposes, the media who make their living at this and have an enormous amount to lose by being removed from the media, they are easily corrupted, because you can simply say to them, you know what? If we take your media license away, you're never going to work again in this business. How about the threat that we used to, the old threat we've heard from Hollywood, right? You'll never work in this town again. How many times have we seen that in a movie, right? Isn't that the same thing? Now you've got the government saying, I'll make sure you never work again because you've crossed me, because you exposed a whistleblower. You allowed a whistleblower to speak out. I got to tell you, anytime you have a government that has shown us what their approach is going to be to whistleblowers, like the Obama administration, the last thing you want to do, the very last thing you want to do, is put it in the hands of the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda to be responsible to help those whistleblowers get the word out. Here's an example for you. Edward Snowden came out and said, I'm going to have to expose this to the public. And everybody who didn't like him or didn't like what he did said, why didn't he go to Congress? I'll tell you why he didn't go to Congress, and you already know the answer. Congress would have buried it. It would have never made it to you. Your ears would have never heard it. They would have silenced him, and in all likelihood, he would have died in a diving accident, or he would have died in a car crash, or he would have, slipped off of a cliff on an ice cream cone or something. Come on, folks. You can't actually believe that they wouldn't have gone to those lengths to avoid what Snowden has created. Please. So here's the deal. Should the next Snowden also be barred from, well, first of all, we know that the next Snowden can't go to Congress because he'll get the same treatment Snowden would have gotten had he gone to Congress. So if you also bar him from going to the media, where is a whistleblower to go? How are they to get the word out? On a YouTube video that can be censored by Google? Please. Let me throw something out here at you. Glenn Greenwald is alternative media. He's not mainstream. The Guardian newspaper, while it is a legitimate newspaper, is, hardly the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal of England. The Guardian newspaper is, it's a little bit more than your daily small-town rag, but it's not a whole lot bigger. The Guardian newspaper is not some mainstream, massive newspaper like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Miami Herald, the LA Times, the Philadelphia Inquirer. It wasn't the size of the Philly Inquirer. I'm not saying that they're alternative media, but, not a far cry from it. Let's put it that way. And they've done very well with it. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. To a certain extent, they're doing this from a profit perspective. But at the same point in time, if there's no place to go, if you can't go to a Breitbart, if you can't go to a, I hate to throw him into the mix, but a Glenn Beck, and I don't know whether he'd do it or not, but there are a ton of alternative media solutions out there. And if you can't go to them, the Washington Times, good example. If you can't go to these alternative media sources, then who are you going to go to? If you can't go to Congress, because they're already corrupt and they're just waiting for you. This is like a spy novel, right? Where you hear the spy call his headquarters and they say, listen, just come on in, John, from the cold and we'll take care of you. And he's like, yeah, right. I know you'll take care of me, but not exactly how I want to be taken care of. It's the same deal. The Senate and the Congress would be over there saying to Edward Snowden, listen, Ed, come on in. Just come in from the cold and let us get you through this. Yeah. Right. So, if you can't go to Congress and you can't go to the media because they're licensed and they're required under their licensing agreement to go back and tell the government, hey, a whistleblower came over here and called me today, and his name is Bob Smith, and his phone number is 555-1212. Who are you going to go to? How are we to ever know? It's already bad enough that in the Federal Register, a couple of months ago, I exposed to you how the United States of America, your government, removed the prohibitions on the use of propaganda against American citizens through the news media. Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? Well, you can go back. I did a whole radio episode on it, and it made WorldNet Daily, and they made a whole article and a story out of it, plus put the entire video right in the middle of the story. The United States of America has lifted the prohibitions by the Smith-Mundt Act, which prohibited the federal government from utilizing propaganda against American citizens. This is the same propaganda we pump into communist countries. Now, it can be modified and retuned for, what? Our consumption. So what are we getting? Everything you see today is propaganda. Nothing that you hear out of the major six is not. Nothing. You don't even know that you're being lied to anymore because the stories are now interleaved, right? And you can't tell the difference between whether it's a legitimate news story or a government-sponsored news story. What we have now is a group of newspapers that, for all intents and purposes, must be the equivalent of TASS or Pravda. No difference, folks. So who's a whistleblower to go to? You wouldn't see a famous Russian like Solzhenitsyn running to Pravda in its heyday or running to TASS and saying, hey, I want you to blow the whistle on this government corruption story. He'd find himself right back in the gulag. How do you think this is going to be any different? The truth is, the left, especially the left, the right also fears talk radio. They don't like the fact that I can sit out here and I can educate you. They don't like the fact that I can sit out here and I can expose them. That's the truth, folks. And they would love nothing more than to shut this down. Not just me. Talk radio as a general rule. Even the Republicans. I mean, they use it when it's to their advantage. Of course they use it as a weapon. But it's a weapon they handle gingerly because it can bite them. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to tackle our third topic this morning. And that will be real inflation and real unemployment. Exactly how staggering are they? And boy, oh boy, are they staggering. You're listening to America's Voice Now. You can email me direct about this or any other episode that we do or segment that we do. And you can email me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. Do me a favor, folks, and please make sure that you help and support our sponsors. You can find the folks over at Wits End Classic Barbershop, where you can get yourself a great haircut for $10. They also, do that hot lather shave with a straight razor and a hot towel and the whole thing. Jason's a good young man, and he's a friend of mine. You can go in there and see him. You can call him if you'd like to find out their hours of operation, 417-372-2027. While you're there, visit the New Patriot Cigar and Tobacco Shop, where they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cigars under humidor, under glass, and they've got pipe tobacco, and they've got almost any accessory from humidors to pipes to tampers and slappers and lighters and everything under the sun. You can actually rent a locker there and keep your fine cigars and even your fine liquor, if you like scotch or whiskey or something there. And you can bring your own, of course. Make sure if you have a legal challenge that you need assistance with, that you contact the law offices of Jason Henry. He also can be found on the square. His telephone number is 417-256-4100. Jason does civil and criminal cases, both state and federal. He specializes in gun issues on a federal and a state level. So if you've got a firearms problem or you've got a friend or a family member who does, give him a call, 417-256-4100. Make sure that you swing by Pizza Hut, and today is reduced price lunch at Pizza Hut, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then Tuesday night is kids under 12 eat free for family night. Also, swing by the Battery Station, batterystation.com, and their phone number is 417-257-7799. 257-7799. We'll be right back.
It's It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. Right here, right now. They can get a listen line set up that you can dial in anytime. You can listen live. No sweat. Call in, you get your own private playing of the show. You can also listen to us on our Spreaker feed. That is Spreaker, like speaker with an R, Spreaker. And downloading the application, go to the App Store of either iTunes or Android, and download the application for Spreaker. When you have it on your phone, simply search for America's Voice Now, Michael Evans, and boom, it'll pop up. You can hit that. The topic for this segment is real inflation, real unemployment, and exactly how staggering they are. Well, the reason why I wanted to point this out is because our theme for this morning is so the idea for all of this, and we're going to touch on this in our last segment, which is raw truth. Can you handle the fix for America? And we're going to talk about ways in which you can listenership. Here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to figure out ways in which we can gum up the works. Legally, peacefully, we're not committing any crimes, we're not committing any violence. Telling them what the real numbers are. be, a little creative about it. Sometimes you have to be subtle, meaning that you soften it a little bit. Depends on the person and what their circumstances and your circumstances in a relationship is. If it's someone that is a diehard Obama fan, try sitting down with them, but give them documentation. Don't just give them lip service, because they hear that from their own traders every day. Educate them, but give them documentation that they cannot deny. Give them some quotes from the founders themselves. Write them down. Put them on a slip. Do something. Because I'm telling you right now, there's going to be an economic collapse. And when it happens, it's going to be... And they're going to say to you, it's Bloomberg.com. I'll give you the brief version of this. Lenders announced more than $60 billion of dividends and buybacks from the Fed-approved capital plans of the 25 of the 30 banks in its annual exam. Citigroup, as well as U.S. units of Royal Bank of Scotland, HSBC Holdings, and Blanco Santander, failed because of concerns about the quality of their processes. Stop. Citigroup, Royal Bank of Scotland, HSBC, and Blanco Santander. Let me tell you who HSBC is, by the way, folks. They hold trillions of dollars worth of consumer debt. And they have been found guilty repeatedly of laundering money for none other than our DEA and every other drug cartel under the sun. In fact, I had a guy on my show going back a year and a half ago who exposed how HSBC was moving dirty laundered cash by, you ain't going to believe this, by containers. Containers. You know, the kind that they put on ships? The ones that are 40 feet long and 10 feet wide and 12 feet high? Yeah, those. Full of cash. You should have seen the photographs. Robert Mazur was his name. You should have seen the photographs in this guy's book. He sent me a copy of his book to read. And I'm telling you, I mean, they were moving and laundering hundreds of billions of dollars just for our DEA. $400 billion. The truth is, by the way, Zion Bank failed too. My point is this. This thing is going to collapse at some point. And you're going to get caught if you're not prepared. Real inflation, real unemployment, and by the way, because of the fact that you know that it's going to happen, and you don't have to have a date, you only have to have the knowledge that it's going to happen and be preparing yourself and your family and your circle of influence. There we're back to that circle of influence again. But when we look at real inflation and we look at real numbers for unemployment, I got to tell you, folks, the numbers are staggering. Our real unemployment right now, real inflation right now is over 10%. We're not seeing that number, and the reason we're not seeing that number is because what's happening is the government has taken the numbers away that make inflation what it is. They've taken food and fuel out of the equation. Now, if you add food and fuel back in, and by the way, to use the same equation that they used back in the 1980s when inflation was actually 15%, it shows that we're well over 10% right now. But the government plays this little game of, well, let's rework the calculations and manipulate it a little bit, and we'll come up with another number. The truth is, if we look at what real unemployment is, by the same token, John Williams from Shadow Government Statistics, he claims it's 2023. And the truth is, he's the guy who's actually right. He's the guy I believe most on his numbers. The Forbes says that it's over 15%. So I don't care whose number you believe. My point is this. The numbers pantry and, you know, the Chuck Schumer hits the fan, then what are you going to say? Well, you know, I mean, if they that How do I act like... One of the ways that you do that is by educating those people around you and exposing them so that they have to take action too. They must. And if they're unwilling to do so, hey, you've done your part. It's on them after that. But one of the things that we have to be cognizant of is our own protection right now, and working within our own circles to make sure our families are protected. So I've said over and over and over again, if you are not buying, bulk food and long-term preparations with ammunition and products like that and medical supplies, you're setting yourself up for a problem. At this point in time, the way that they have manipulated the calculations to, re-affect the real inflation numbers, which, by the way, on zero hedge, they say it's 19%. 19% inflation. And by the way, I don't believe that's far off. That may be a little high, but, But here's the point. If you're not buying food, bulk food, and you're not buying ammunition and medical supplies, then you're not really doing your part as an American citizen and as a patriot. Because truthfully, when the poop hits the fan, when the Chuck Schumer hits the fan, we're going to need every one of you on board. And we can't use you if you're as skinny as a scarecrow and you haven't eaten in a week. Truth is, if I'm completely wrong and the whole world turns around and your best hopes become reality, you can eat it. No harm done. And at the rate of inflation right now, depending upon whose numbers you look at, you would have saved anywhere between, 10 and 80%. Depends on how long it takes you to get to eat it. But right now, we are running at an inflation rate of, on average, 10 or 11% per year. And we have been since 2009, when Obama took office. Is it Obama's fault? No. George Bush was a part and parcel of this whole collapse, and that we've never recovered from. Obama's done everything in his power to mangle it up and make it even worse. Think about, but he's not responsible for it, other than the fact that he was a senator and voted present, but abstaining in every vote he ever took. The empty suit of the Senate, right? By the way, I want you to think about something. The goal of today's discussion is what? How can we be partisans and help break the back of the beast, right? Guess what? For the record, every president that we have had in modern history, and even further beyond, since 1900, have been doing the same thing to the best of their ability. They've been mucking up the works to the best of their ability so that America wouldn't succeed. They're just working for the opposite goal. They're throwing sand in our gears. We can't clean it because we don't have the power, we don't have the influence, we don't have the money. But what we can do is throw sand in their gears so that they can't pick up as much sand or pick it up as frequently. Think about it. They are actively destroying the United States of America from within. Your job is to destroy them. Same way. They use legal means. They use illegal means too, and then give themselves a free get-out-of-jail-free card to accomplish it. But you and I have an obligation to figure out where, when, and how we can creatively become partisans, peacefully, legally, civil disobediently, and do everything we can to muck up the works, to jam it up, to throw the sand in the gears, and lock it down. And we can do that in our own little minuscule ways. But you know what? If you take enough piles of horse crap and you throw them on top of each other, it doesn't take very long before you've made a mountain out of the molehill. we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to tackle our last and final topic for this morning. And tomorrow I will be on vacation starting tomorrow. So Friday and then all next week I'm going to take a break, and we'll play shows, but they're going to be pre-recorded best of programs. I'm going to pick selected segments from other shows that were popular or I thought hit home or whatever, and we'll utilize those. So we'll be back in just a couple of moments. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Please make sure that you email me or contact me directly at mike@americasvoicenow.org. Make sure that you, if you can, hit our sponsors and make sure that you work with those folks to support them, because these are the guys that keep us on the air. Our friends over at Battery Station, where you can get all the bulk food you need, and he makes nothing on it. It's purely a service that he does for our listenership. You can get to him by going to batterystation.com. You can also call them at 417-257-7799, or you can go visit them at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains, Missouri. Today is reduced price lunch at Pizza Hut on Thursdays, and the one on Porter Wagoner. I'm going to swing by there for lunch today, and I hope to see you there. If you can, please feel free to come by. It's from basically 11:30 to about 1:30. And so if you're in town or you're in the community or in the area, please feel free to do that. Every Tuesday and Thursday, they have reduced price luncheon. On Tuesday night, kids under 12 eat free. Visit my friend Jason Henry. If you've got a legal problem and need some help, civil, criminal, federal, or state, or even just local community, makes no difference. Give him a call. 417-256-4100. 417-256-4100. I've utilized Jason's services personally, and I know he's a guy of integrity, and he's a very good, skilled lawyer. Patriot Cigar and Tobacco Shop and Wits End Classic Barber Shop. We'll be back in just a moment. Listening to America's Voice Now, and we're back in our final and last segment of this morning. You know, yesterday and today, I've been trying to drive home the idea about what can we do to slow the onslaught, the juggernaut, if you will. And you know, I'm accused by some people of being too harsh or, you know, too controversial. And the truth is, I tell the raw truth. You may or may not agree with it completely, and that's okay. I don't expect you to agree with everything I believe in or say. I also don't expect you to believe what I tell you. I expect you to go out and do your own homework and think for yourself. That's part of the critical thinking process. You don't believe me? Don't you dare believe what I say. Go out and verify it. Go out and educate yourself. Don't believe it. But I'm going to tell you what the raw truth is for us right now. And that is, we have Is that right? No, of course it's not right. But that's not their point. Their point is they don't want you to have a part in the lawmaking process. Now, it doesn't matter whether your felony was when you were 20 years old and you're now 50 or you're now 60 and, you are a pillar of the community or you've run a business and you've never even had so much as a traffic ticket. That doesn't matter. Is it unfair? Absolutely. But it is what it is. And this fella said, well, what can I do? In my state, not only can you not have a felony, you can't even have a federal misdemeanor. Wow. I mean, boy, that really limits the number of people that can run for office, doesn't it? And I said, well, you know what? File a lawsuit. It doesn't matter whether you win. It's that you make them do work and you distract them from, they can't work at plotting and planning to destroy us if they're defending themselves. And like a guerrilla war, we have to not face the enemy head on, face to face. We have to harass them, nip at them, bleed them to death with the death of 1,000 cuts. Will we be bleeding ourselves? Of course. We can't do one without the other. But you got to recognize, ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, as a nation, all hope is lost. We have zero control over this government. We have no control over the federal government and no real control over the state government either. We have law enforcement agencies that act more like jackbooted enforcers for thugocracies than we have police that are out there willing to defend us from those thugs. They're more like mercenary organizations that are run amok in a lot of cases. We have churches that have sold their congregations and their constituents down the drain for a 501c carrot. That's right, that little tax-exempt carrot. They don't care. And I got to tell you, I do this radio program in a church, but I have this radio program in a church that's been gracious enough to allow us to do this, and they agree. The 501c3 has been the bane of organized religion. Because what it really does is it gives them the opportunity to use something, hold something over your head. This goes back to our argument earlier in the earlier segment about licensing journalists, right? Just like you're licensed to be a church by a 501c3, now you'll do whatever you need to do to keep that drug of tax-free money coming to you. You'll sell your soul. You'll sell your congregation's soul. How dare you? The truth is, raw truth is this. We've lost our country, and we've lost all semblance of integrity and honor. We've lost all hope that we can solve this in some political fashion. So now it's down to us to find another way to achieve the same goal. To hopefully bring about the change that we need, knowing that this isn't done yet. We haven't seen the worst of what's coming. So while we're preparing, we're also harassing the enemy with the death of 1,000 cuts. We know that we're not going to bleed them out immediately, but we can start to actively work towards those goals, practice now, and we do it all legally, we do it all above board, but we use practical, simple ways to accomplish those tasks. I want each of you to help me create groups of lists that we can use. Practical ways that we can gum up the works. Practical ways we can throw sand in the gears. We can pour Elmer's glue in the moving parts. Legally. I went over 100 examples the other day. I'll throw a couple out there. If you work in a billing environment, well, these large utilities that are playing games with us, great. Any company that you work with, misdirect their packaging. If you work for UPS or you work for FedEx and you see a package that's coming from Homeland Security, or we started to talk about this yesterday with Harris Corporation out of Florida, who's selling these spy stingrays to local police departments, make sure that box never gets to the police department. Ship it off somewhere to Zimbabwe. Let them have it. Put a stamp over the top of it, says, on its way to Zimbabwe, it's never going to make Miami, it's never going to make Bent Elbow, Louisiana, or Crooked Knee, Tennessee, or wherever the heck it was supposed to go. You see, if you're willing to do what it takes, I watched this program, and I talked about this yesterday, called Flame and Citron. It's a story about partisans in World War II. They were Dutch. The entire movie's in Dutch, by the way, so you got to pay attention. You can't. This is not one you can actually have a conversation with somebody sitting next to you when you watch it. I saw it on Netflix. It's available there. It's called Flame and Citron. Citron. Flame, like as in flame on a candle. They called him Flame because he had red hair. This is a true story, by the way. This isn't a fictional story. It's true. These guys went after anybody or everybody that was colluding with the Germans. Now, there were a lot of Dutch, just like there were a lot of French, just like there were a lot of Polish, just like there were a lot of people in countries that were overtaken that colluded with the enemy. And they went in, and if you ran a bar or a hotel and you were assisting the Germans and the Nazis in those days, they'd burn your place to the ground. If you were a newspaper man who they had one example where the guy was a newspaper man and they killed him. They walked up to him, shot him right in the street. That's the price that traitors pay. Now, am I advocating that we do that? No, we're not in a shooting war. So don't go there. I'm not suggesting anybody go shoot anybody. But nor am I suggesting you burn down a newspaper office. The point is simply this. We're not there yet, but there are a lot of things that we can do to bring down, and if you want to understand how, go read some of the partisan documentation from World War II, from occupied France, occupied Italy, occupied Poland, occupied the Netherlands, and the Scandinavian countries. Read what they did. Did you ever hear about the kids in Norway that literally put all the community gold, the government gold, on their sleds, and they sledded right past the Germans with the country's gold supply? That's true. That's a true story. They got all the kids together, and they needed to get the gold out because the Nazis had come. And they couldn't figure out a way to move it because any adult was searched and whatever. So you know what they did? They got all the kids to sleigh ride down these hills from the community at the top of the hill all the way down to the docks on sleds. And they put 1 or 2 gold bars under each kid, and the kids sledded right past the lines of Germans marching up the hill to take over their country. Your job is to be a partisan. Legal, nonviolent, but be a partisan. Why? Because it's the only way right now that we can go down without a fight. It's the only way we can go down right now without creating a bloody war. It's the way that we can fight back. It's the way that we can resist. And that's what you are. You are a partisan, and this is resistance. You are resistance. And resistance can take many, many, many forms. Doesn't have to be violent. You can file Freedom of Information Acts on everything. Get your computer, open up Word or some document processor, and start filing Freedom of Information Acts. You know what they cost you? A 46-cent stamp. That's it. 46-cent stamp. File 100 of them. On everything. It doesn't even matter what. File them with your city council. File them with your state. File them with your federal government. File them with the thousands of myriad of agencies that are out there. Why? Because somebody's got to be taken off the front line to do all that work. My dad served in World War II. And he said that at the height, when they were overrun by Japanese, and he fought in Okinawa and in the South Pacific, And he said to me, we were vastly outnumbered. I mean, terribly outnumbered at certain times. And he said, at one point, the strategy was, don't shoot to kill. Shoot to wound. Because when we wound him, we've taken that guy out of the battle. But it takes 2 of his friends to get him off the battlefield, and we've effectively taken 3 people out of commission. And that was how they reduced the odds. I mean, they were vastly outnumbered. So how did they balance the odds? They took 3 people out for every guy they shot. The goal is not to expect that we're going to win. What I want you to do is get into the mindset that the raw truth is this. We're in for a guerrilla war that's going to last us a long, long time. Perhaps a generation, maybe more. Well, that can't happen here. Okay, you can go ahead and fool yourself with that nonsense. But it is happening here. And it's happening already. It's happening right now, right around you. You could pretend it's not happening, but that doesn't make it so. I'm reminded last night, I was watching Fox News. And I was watching an interview, I think it was on Megyn Kelly. And they had these 2 guys talking there. One of these guys was a Democratic analyst, strategist, whatever you want to call him. And they were talking about this problem over in the Ukraine and about how the reputation that the United States now has under Obamacare is, for all intents and purposes, a laughingstock. And this guy came out from the Democratic side and he said, well, nobody's advocating we put 150,000 boots on the ground. And he tried to misdirect the whole conversation away. He wasn't interested in actually having a legitimate discussion about the real topic of why the world looks at us as if we're weak, which is directly related to our president in this administration and all of his advisors, I might add. He's not alone in these decisions. But his goal was not to attack the problem head on. He knew he couldn't win that fight. So he tried to misdirect and mislead. He's like the wounded bird or the bird that pretends to be wounded to lead you away from the nest. He wanted you to follow him down the road of idiocy, lunacy. No, of course, no one is talking about putting 150,000 boots on the ground. But we probably could have done something a little bit better for the Ukraine than give them MREs. That's what we gave them. They came to us asking for money. They came to us asking for ammunition, weapons, and material, supplies. We gave them MREs. No guns, no bullets. I mean, it's kind of an insult, wasn't it? The point was, your job is to do essentially what he was trying to do. Misdirect, mislead, slow it down, confusion, sow confusion. You know how partisans were successful during World War II? They sowed confusion everywhere they went and chaos. Didn't matter whether they weren't trying to win some battle. It's strike and leave. It's cut and walk away. It's not cut to kill, it's cut to bleed. But when you got enough cuts and each cut lets out a drop, soon you got a court. Now you got a real war going on. This is a war, whether you choose to believe it or not. It may not be a hot war yet, thank God. But at some point, you got to realize just how far down the rabbit hole this whole thing's going to go. Your job is to be a partisan. Legal, peaceful, civil. But there are a lot of ways that you can accomplish that. You can take 3 people off the battlefield for every one that you wound. That's the concept. How do you do that? Well, you file lawsuits. You file a lawsuit in your state court. You know what it costs you? $18, $20, $50. Consider that your deposit to liberty. I don't care if you win. It's not about winning. It's not that you're going to win. It's that you're going to tie up 95 You're going to tie up 95 hours by 3 attorneys who got to sit there and do that instead of figuring out how they can shaft you. Go to your city council meetings. Force them to be accountable. Force them to produce documentation under your state sunshine laws or your state exposure laws. And if they won't, file a Freedom of Information Act. File a Freedom of Information Act anywhere and everywhere you can. It costs you nothing to accomplish. Nothing. Not a penny. Just the filing, the stamp. That's all it's going to cost you. The stamp. There are a lot of things that you can do. If you have some money that you can apply to this, if you're a business, how about a local billboard in your community? You want some billboard ideas? Write me an email to mike@americasvoicenow.org. We'll talk about it. The idea is how many people will see that billboard and suddenly realize, man, maybe there is something more to this than I thought. You've just enlisted how many new soldiers? If you work in a business that deals with the government in any way, shape, or form, when they place an order, delay it. I'm not saying do something that will hurt you or your business or your company. Make sure that their order gets as delayed as long as possible for a supply they need, and then make it go the slow boat to China method to get there. I don't care if you're shipping it from, from Pennsylvania to Ohio, right? Make sure it goes by way of Taiwan on the way around. The truth is, that's all we can do for right now. But it's good practice, and it's training. And it's setting your mindset to realize that, yes, we are not powerless in the face of treason. Get on a political campaign. Get on a political campaign. And destroy it from the inside. Do you hear what I just said? This is 2014. This is a political year. Between now and November, every person who's running for any position, irrespective of what party they're for, are running campaigns. Get on one. Get on a campaign of someone you don't want to win. Obviously, you don't want to get caught at this because, you don't want to have been railing about how terrible that. But get on their campaign and sabotage it from the inside. How hard is that? They do that to us all the time. What do you mean you don't know how they do that to us? Don't you remember that the Democrats were funding the senator who ran in 2012? I can't even think of the guy's name. He said something about women and abortion, and, of course, the whole world blew up at him and put him out on a firing squad, political firing squad. The Democrats were pouring money into his campaign to keep him in the race. Believe that? They were actually funding his campaign, making campaign donations to him to keep him in the race. Why? Because if he had the party's blessing to keep going forward, they knew they could beat him. And it was actually cheaper to keep him in the race than to pay their own candidates' bills. Think about it. Imagine the damage you can do to a campaign from the inside. It's espionage. Not illegal. Not saying you should do anything illegal. I'm telling you to be creative. I'm telling you to work from the inside out. I'm telling you, if you work for a police department, if you work for a federal agency, if you work for conservation, if you work for Border Patrol, if you work for any of these groups, become a whistleblower. But don't just find one thing and blow the whistle. Get documentable evidence and expose it. Secretly, quietly. Find someone in the alternative media. Why? Because, like Snowden, you can't go to Congress because you'll end up with your brake lines cut doing 80 miles an hour into a tree. Like Snowden, you have to go someplace, not to the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, because your fate will be similar. If you really have damning information on an agency or a government entity that you work on, and you're a true whistleblower, you have to go to alternative media. But imagine what you could do. Think about the change Snowden made in the United States of America. Think about it. I mean, here's a guy, and whether you believe he's controlled opposition, a part of the game, I don't care. The point is, he opened up a dialogue that awakened literally tens of millions of your and my compatriots. And that, whether or not he's controlled opposition or not, that worked for our purposes. Millions of Americans have suddenly come awake and said, wow. I mean, I thought that was just rumor. Maybe things really are worse than I thought. Send me email with your ideas. Creatively. Make them legal. They're monitoring all of our email, by the way, so don't do anything stupid and put anything in there that you wouldn't want somebody to read. And trust me, they are reading them. So send me email and just give me a list. Boom, 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 boom. 20 ideas each. I want to see 20 ideas out of you. What can you do? And I'll compile them all. I'll try to organize it in some way, and we'll go over it. Let's do that for the next week or so and see how many ideas that we can come up with about what can you do to be a partisan to gum up the works. How much sand can you throw in the gears? Legally, peacefully. I have to keep saying that disclaimer, otherwise I won't return from vacation. All right, we're wrapped for the day.